everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we will be interviewing Leah Thomson, or you would better know her as Girl Gone Crypto. She is a blockchain media and content specialist, as you might already know. She makes really fun short form videos and short form content for crypto and blockchain. She does long form too, but it's the short form videos that have taken the internet by a storm. So I'm very excited about this conversation. Let's get right in. Hi, Leah. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on the show. I'm really excited to chat with you.
I'm glad. Okay, so can you tell us a little? Can you tell our listeners a little about your background and how did you get into this space?
Yeah, so I've been in the crypto space for really about 3.5 years. But the funny thing is I had some friends that were Bitcoin miners back in like 2011. And so I'd go to their apartment, they have all of these just racks of, different cards and they were mining and their apartment was like so hot from all like running the miners. And I was like, what is this crazy thing? And they're like, you should get into Bitcoin. I'm like, no, I don't think this is for me. And so that was my like really first impression of Bitcoin. And then kind of early 2017, I stumbled across, I don't know if you're familiar with Steemit, the kind of like blogging platform.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I ran across that in kind of early 2017 and started posting on there and earning crypto. And that's what really kind of opened my eyes and like led me down the rabbit hole of asking all of those questions like, why is this worth anything? What gives it value? What can I do with it? Like, what is this thing called a BTC pair and an exchange and a hardware wallet?
Wow.
all of the questions that you have to start asking once you actually have some crypto to contend with. And so really during the last bull run, I think that's when I, kind of the bug hit and I was like, this is amazing. And I've just been like pretty much all in on crypto ever since.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So, previous to this, what sector were you working in? Considering you started just 3 years earlier.
Yeah, and I should clarify. I started the Girl Gone Crypto social channels a little over a year ago, and so before that, when I was blogging on Steemit, I was just doing like ukulele covers and kind of random things. But it was really about a year and a half ago that I was like, I think I'm going to start a crypto channel and just see what happens.
Wow.
But yeah,
and that has
to
gone
that.
so well. Like you're doing splendidly well, right?
Oh, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. So
yeah, no, I have a lot of fun watching your videos. So I watched the one in which when J.K. Rowling had posted about she was asking about crypto, and he had posted that video. So that is the video that kind of got me to follow you on Twitter because I thought that was so wonderful. So yeah, I think more power to you because it's so important to kind of put out the right kind of information out there because this technology is so new and there are so many people who talk with such jargon, right? And it's then you cannot expect mass adoption when people are not even understanding it.
No, I think that's such a great segue into like a really important conversation about about creating content that's maybe more approachable and digestible for an average consumer. I kind of talk about my first impression of Bitcoin was that it was this like really weird thing for nerds. And, what kind of changed that was seeing more like people that were like me, that were, having these kind of more like just regular conversations and then learning about crypto through that. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I think there really is a lot of power in just having more diversity in the crypto space of not just like people that are involved, but of different content types as well, because then that resonates with different consumers, different types of people. And, hopefully Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain is an industry that feels inclusive to people when they come to check it out. And so that's something that I really think about with my content.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the entire idea of kind of getting into Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies is about making the world, more inclusive, and content needs to do that, and it plays such a big role. What is your outlook on, video content creation vis-a-vis other forms of content in terms of terms of disseminating this kind of information for mass adoption in blockchain and crypto?
Oh, that's a great question. So, yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of different types of content, different mediums that people can use. Like, obviously, there's longer form content, like big blog posts, big Medium articles, like longer videos. But I don't know, personally, I love short form content, and so that's a lot of what I end up making. So you've got videos like, you mentioned the J.K. Rowling, like, Harry Potter video earlier, and those are kind of more like playful fun. But I even do these
Yeah.
like 2-minute explainer videos, yeah, where I just like take like a complex topic and try to explain it as best as I can in 2 minutes. And like I know that's the kind of content I would want to watch if I was just starting to dig into something and I saw a bunch of videos and they were all like 30 minutes long and there's this 2-minute one. I'm like, oh, let me start there. you know? And so, but beyond
That's
that, I think
absolutely
that,
true, because
Mhm.
otherwise it becomes intimidating, right?
Yeah, and I think that everyone has different styles of how they like to learn, as well. And so kind of coming back to what you were saying about different types of content being important, I think that, the more that we can cater to different people's interests and into the type, like the way they like to consume content, I think is pretty key. And so like within that, something I've been doing more of lately, which is really fun, is making these like TikTok style kind of videos that are almost like comedy sketch about crypto. But, my kind of thought process with that is like, even though it's not like heavy educational, it's something that maybe gets people to laugh or maybe gets them to see a different side of a topic. Like maybe someone that's not really interested in crypto yet, but they see that and they're like, oh, so something clicks for them because it's put in a different type of context. So I think there's a lot of power in exploring like different, not just different types of content, but kind of different emotions, like bringing comedy, bringing lifestyle, bringing different types of things into it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately it's about creating content that will speak to, the person who's consuming it. And as you mentioned very correctly, that everybody has a very different way of kind of assimilating content. Not everybody likes, long form content, and at times long form content can also be a barrier, right? Because
Mm.
people find it very intimidating. So I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. I think that is exactly what people need to be doing to sort of get the information out, because right now I think that is the problem with this sector, that not enough information is there in a cohesive way, right? Because like if you start googling it, as you said, it's like down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so no, I think that you're doing some really, like, a really good job of content creation. So what are the kind of services that you provide with your platform?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess when it comes to, there's a few different things that I kind of do. It's really random, but I joke that I have a video production company and I didn't plan it. But like when I started making videos, I had a lot of different crypto brands reach out to me being like, "Hey, can you make our tutorial videos for like our website and our YouTube channels?" And so I actually do quite a bit of that, which is kind of funny. But there's a lot of different brands where I've maybe made their educational videos about their product. Like let's say like coin payments is one that I work with quite a bit. They're a crypto payment processor. And so I make videos about,
Right.
merchants accepting crypto and doing tutorials on how to do that and things like that. And so that's been really fun to kind of explore that side of things as well. So I make my own content, but I also do work with other brands as well to make their content. And that's been just it's a really fun way to get to know some of these like really cool crypto brands a little bit better, because you get almost like inside the team a little bit. You're working with their people and crafting the message and everything together and doing all of that. And so it's been a fun way to just kind of get to meet more people in the crypto world as well. And then in
Yeah.
addition to that, I have a show, kind of similar to this style, except it's video, but where we just chat and I interview different people in the crypto space. And that's been a really fun thing too. So, we talk about long form versus short form content. And even though short form content is kind of more my favorite, I do long form content as well, with these different interviews with CEOs and founders of different various projects. And that's been a really cool way to get to learn more about some of these different projects and things that are happening as well. Because as you know, there's always so much going on in the crypto space. And so if I can sit down with someone for like
Absolutely.
15 minutes and ask all my questions and record it and share it as an interview, like that other people hopefully find helpful, I feel like that's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah. No, there is, as you mentioned, there is so much going on at any given point of time in this space. Recently, DBS Bank announced that today only they announced that they are going to be opening up an exchange. So, did you hear that? And was it expected, like after PayPal, DBS is like again a very big brand to sort of launch something like that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I just think in general, there's been so many really kind of like big bank or big investor type of announcements the last week or two were like PayPal, Square, what is it, Stone
Yeah.
Ridge? Like there's just been so many like, what I kind of refer to them as like the suits getting into Bitcoin, and it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think this is this just kind of bodes well, I think, for the whole space. So, are there any particular projects that you are rooting for currently?
Okay, yep. So, I've mentioned Bitcoin a few times. Obviously, Bitcoin's my homeboy. That's my original love. But, um, just in general, I'm a really big fan of privacy coins as well. I think that as we move into kind of this next stage of adoption, I think that we're going to see a big move to privacy coins as kind of these original Bitcoiners, as there comes in more regulation and more kind of stipulations and rules and taxation and like all these different components that we probably need for mass adoption, for the average consumer to actually get involved. I think that the people that really kind of have those original values of self-sovereignty and privacy will probably start moving more towards using privacy coins, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of Monero. They're kind of the OG privacy coin in my opinion.
Privacy,
I really
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I like the tech behind it. I like the community behind it. Like the values of the community feel really strong, which is cool. And one of the things I always like to look at when looking at a project is like, who's the kind of head of the project, the figurehead, and do they seem to have good values? And I know that's maybe not I mean, that's only one marker, to use when evaluating a project,
Yeah.
but it's definitely one that I like to look at.
But
And
it's
I
a big
feel like the
marker, right?
I
Like,
think so too. I think it just really speaks
yeah.
to, like kind of my confidence in how they built the code and how they, really set the project up to hopefully be decentralized. And I know there's, various shades of centralization and decentralization with any project, but yeah. So I guess to circle back and answer your question, I think that privacy coins in general are something I'm really looking at right now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I think that is something that's a space that's going to, it becomes hot, and then kind of, the noise kind of moves away to other things that are happening. But I think that is something that's going to stay, right? Privacy and data protection and that kind of data sovereignty. They're big things, and now people are getting more involved in these spaces. They're getting more aware. So I think it's only going to get bigger. So I think you're pretty much bang on there. What about DeFi? What is your outlook on DeFi? Obviously, I'm gonna ask you that. DeFi is like
Yes.
really hot right now, and everybody keeps talking about DeFi. So I would love your take. What is your take on?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I always joke in my own interviews right now. I'm like, it wouldn't be a good blockchain interview if we didn't talk about DeFi. So it's the big topic right now. So,
Yeah.
so my thoughts on it in general, like just from a high level, is I know kind of earlier this summer, a lot of people were saying things like, "Oh, this is giving me 2017 ICO vibes and all of this. This feels like a fad." But what's
Yeah.
really interesting to me is that I think that most people have kind of come around to like realizing that this might have like some similar feeling hype around it, but the actual underlying technology and the methodology behind what these tools actually can do is much much stronger than what the ICO boom was, right? And so I think
Right.
that there's I think a lot of runway left for DeFi. Like we might start seeing um sorry, we might start seeing, less crazy APYs. Like, you might not be able to get these like 100,000 whatever returns anymore. But I think in general, the thought process of, how these kind of like liquidity pools work in market making, and taking really the profits that these centralized exchanges are, pocketing right now, and giving it back to the users that are helping to, put up the capital to make these markets, I think is awesome, and a really positive move for the space, and one that I think that as we continue to evolve as an industry, like we'll even see more like big players, more of those suits, even getting into DeFi. And I think that
Yeah.
there's really a lot of potential here.
Wow, yeah, I think that is like a perspective that I share as well. I think, even though there is a lot of noise around DeFi and people seem to think that it might be like the ICO boom and it might just crash and burn, I don't believe that that is what is happening. I think a lot of good solutions are coming up which are really solving, some pertinent problems, and because of the kind of teams that are backing them, I also feel very strongly that DeFi is here to stay for some time.
Mhm. I do want to say too, though, that if part of the reason it's getting a bad rep in some circles is because there really have been a lot of scams. And so for those of you listening to this, be careful out there, do your research. It's there's a lot of great projects, but
Absolutely.
definitely a lot of, there's anonymous teams, and we've seen a lot of different rug pulls and people exit scamming. And so there's varying level of risk versus reward, right? And so I think just know that going in, that there are CeFi alternatives that are more centralized that won't maybe give you as good of returns. But if you're looking for something that feels more stable, there's things like Celsius and BlockFi that'll give you smaller returns, but it's and it is custodial, but it's there's not going to be a rug pull on like Celsius and BlockFi, right? So I think like everyone just has to gauge their own level of risk
Yeah.
versus reward versus wanting to hold their own funds and all of that.
All of that, yeah, all of that. So I think it's a lot to do with the kind of risk appetite that you have, and you've
Hmm.
kind of summed it up very correctly that you need to do your own research. So let's move on from the DeFi. There's another thing that's making a lot of noise, which NFTs, so non-fungible tokens, are making a lot of noise. What is your outlook on those?
Yeah, I actually think that the NFT community might be my favorite like community in crypto right now. Like I just love that all of these artists are coming together and they're using this process to be able to, really profit from their art, but then also to support other artists. Like that's one of the things that I think is really cool is there's a lot of kind of market making within the NFT community where someone's buying someone else's art thinking, oh, this is a great deal, this might go up, and then they're selling it on their own pages. So there's a lot of really cool support of artists happening within the secondary NFT markets, which I think is awesome. And so I haven't gotten too deep into NFTs myself yet, partially because I'm not really an artist on in my own sense. Like I would maybe consider like making videos like a form of artwork, but that's not transferable really to NFTs. And so um, I've been
Yeah.
I've been meeting with different artists to try to find someone I like to commission some pieces. So hopefully, I've got an NFT series that I'm hopefully going to be coming out with in the next few weeks. I'm not sure when this recording will air, but hopefully, that'll be up soon. But yeah, since I'm not really much of an artist myself, I'm having to find artists to work with before jumping in.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I also believe that it's like a really interesting space, and I think it has a lot of potential. So it's a space to watch out for. Right now, it's seen like a resurgence after the initial crypto kitties, etc., had kind of faded out. So yeah, this is just a space that I'm also keeping an eye out on. But like you, I haven't really gotten very deep into it. But yeah,
Mhm.
I'm trying to sort of stay abreast with the kind of all the developments that are happening. So nice. What kind of moving on a bit to a different chain of thought, are there any kind of books that you would recommend, or some kind of content that you would recommend to people who are trying to, who are just like peering in from outside and they want to get into this space? Would there be any kind of content that you would recommend apart from your own content that you think would be good for somebody who's just starting out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always kind of come back to Andreas Antonopoulos. both from
Yeah.
a book and a video perspective. So no matter how someone likes to learn, like his books are like actually like pretty short and digestible. Like he's got a whole
Yeah.
series of kind of basics, and so it's not this really big intimidating book when you get it in the mail. um, but also, he does a great job with breaking things down in different videos on his YouTube channel. And so depending if someone prefers to read or to watch videos, I think he's a really good first step as a resource.
Absolutely. I think, that I think Andres Antonopoulos has done like a fabulous job. His videos, the books, they're so compelling. He makes a compelling case. And that is what I like about his content, that he actually makes a compelling case for blockchain, for crypto. And, I believe that even a non-believer, once they kind of consume a little bit of his content, would see some reason in this in space.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's a great just resource and presence within the crypto space. And we talked earlier about like, I feel like sometimes you can really feel the ethos of someone and like why they do what they do. And obviously we never really know with people, but it seems to me like he is really here for, like he loves to educate, he loves to help bring people into the space. And I think that's really cool as well to feel that.
Yeah, he's here for the greater good in it. So yeah, that is kind of something that does show through his content, and I think I completely agree with you there. Awesome. So Leah, now I this is like kind of my penultimate question. I ask all the people I interview here, because this interview, this podcast primarily was started because I wanted to throw more light on the women working in this space. So are there any women leaders that you think that our listeners should follow? I think the men people are already aware of. There are a few obvious ones, but women, if you could throw light on some women thought leaders that you think our listeners should listen to or be following.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, I'm glad you mentioned that. So yeah, there's tons of really incredible women in this industry as well. So people that I like to follow are I really like to follow Catherine Coley. I believe she's the CEO of Binance US is her title.
Right.
But
Yeah.
um Yep, Meltem, I don't know how to say her last name, Demores or something like that. Does a lot of great stuff for the industry. Caitlin Long, who's running, the big project out of Wyoming, is doing a lot of really interesting things with, kind of building your own bank and building a community. And then on the more like content creator side of things, like women that I really enjoy interacting with are, people like Naomi Brockwell. I think she makes really great YouTube content. Crypto Finally
Yeah.
is a good friend of mine and someone that I do a lot of live streams with, and we do a lot of like Bitcoin
Yeah.
for beginners kind of videos and things. And so she's a really great one to follow. Tech with Catalina is another female I would absolutely recommend people check out. She is based in Argentina, and she has both a Spanish and an English channel, and she just does incredible educational content and is a really, really good person to follow as well.
Wow. Okay. You're probably one of the very few people who've actually named so many, and I'm glad that you did. Usually, people like they go like, okay, we've been put on the spot and we don't have any names, and they usually name a lot of men, and I'm really happy that you've actually shed light on a lot of. So because there are there are women here in this space who are moving things and doing such amazing work, that I think it's important that we kind of throw light on them. Men usually do hog up a lot of light, and it is it is just that the gender ratio is skewed everywhere. So yeah, thank you so much for naming so many. So now coming to my last question, if again to our listeners, if somebody is again, as I said, if somebody is peering in, how would you suggest they start living on blockchain? How do they get into this space according to you? What should be their first steps?
I think the first step is really to just kind of get involved, get a little bit of crypto, get a little bit of Bitcoin, and then start playing around with all these things. And the reason I say that is it kind of mirrors my own journey and my own story of how, like, it's like I had friends that were telling me about Bitcoin for years, and I didn't really listen to them until I finally like I had a little bit of crypto on my own, and I was like, wait a second, okay, now I got to figure out what to do with this and start asking all those questions. And so
Yeah.
I'm a really big fan of that. Like, you know, even if you've like, I don't know, got like $100 to invest, or there's even places where you can earn crypto, you know, like if you're in the US, there's a browser plugin called Lolly that you can earn crypto for your
Yeah.
online purchases. And so there's various ways to kind of get your hands on your first few Satoshis, right? Your first little bit of crypto. And I
Right.
think that's really powerful as just kind of a way to encourage like exploration and learning. And then at that point, you know, kind of follow the questions you need and you know, find YouTube videos and or books and do different things like that, like we talked about earlier. But yeah, I think the most powerful lesson and tool is just to get your hands on some crypto yourself.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward way, and I think that is the way anybody should start, to just get their hands dirty a little bit, to get involved. And only when you sort of get involved, then it kind of piques your interest, and you look at other avenues, right? Then you're
Hmm.
open to exploration. So lovely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this has been an absolutely amazing chat. Leah, any parting thoughts?
I just want to say thank you so much for having me as a guest. It's really great to connect with other women in the space. You know, like we were talking a moment ago, there's, you know, we're a little few and far between, but
Yeah.
hopefully that's changing and we're changing that. And so I really appreciate you having this podcast and for having me on as a guest.
Thank you so much for taking out the time. This has been a lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.